thank you all again for being here. And for those of you that are online, if you're in the building and want to come up here, I know she thought about maybe doing an activity later. So if you want to be a part of that, join us up here on the 7th floor. And without further ado, Ms. Lynn Pride Richardson.
Thank you, Jason. Let me tell you, Jason is so patient with me, okay, because when he asked me to do this, the first thing I wanted to do, I said, I'm going to tell them about the history of theater going back to ancient Greece. And he kind of looked at me and he said, I don't know if they're going to be that interested in that, okay. He said they want to know about you and your involvement in the theater. But I have to say that it's important to find out what the origins of this art form that we call theater came from. But first and foremost, happy Women's History Month. And I wanted to say that this is Dallas County's time to acknowledge and uplift the women that work for Dallas County. Do you realize that 60% of our workforce are women? And we are in every corner of Dallas County doing things in every single department. And so you need to applaud yourselves for the work that you perform, because it is amazing the work that you do and how you make this wheel turn. Again, when I talked to Jason about this, I said, well, I have to go back a little bit over the history of what theater is. How many of you are theater goers, like going to plays, going to the theater? Okay. Now, at the end of this, we're going to play a little skit, a little improvisation. Who knows what an improvisation is? Okay, somebody in the back knows. I may be calling on some of you to do an improvisation to kind of get the feel of what it's like to be on stage. Now, first of all, theater is, of course, a branch of the performing arts. It focuses on live performances. Now, why is that important? Because nowadays, you can turn on your television and see a movie or see a series, okay? And a lot of people say, well, why do I need to do that? Why can't I just stick with that? Because to be honest with you, a lot of plays end up being turned into movies. But there's something about the interaction between people on stage, live actors who are performing for the public, and the audience. A spirit, an energy that goes back and forth that energizes us all. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that's important, especially in this day and time. Originally, the word theater is a Greek origin, and it originates from the ancient Greek word theatron. Now, theater normally is spelled T-H-E-A-T-E-R, but you will notice if you do some reading that sometimes it is spelled T-H-E-A-T-R-E. Why that is, I don't know, but both are acceptable. It emerged from, interestingly enough, religious rituals honoring the god Dionysus. Dionysus was a Greek god, and he was the god of wine, fertility, and theater. That's interesting, the god of wine and fertility. Theater emerged from myths, ceremonies, and rituals which took place in daily life. Theater performances in classical Greece included festivals, religious rituals, politics, law, athletics, gymnastics, music, poetry, weddings, funerals, and entertainment after banquet. Now, why is that important? We do all of that anyway. You have theatrical productions in your churches, in community organizations. It's the same concept. From ancient Greece to modern times, playwrights have used theater as an art form to challenge societal norms, spark conversations, and even inspire change. Now, I guess I should be operating this, Jason. Okay. We'll get to that in a minute. Theater in America became popular right around 1716 and began to flourish in the English colonies. Now, interestingly enough, the origins of Black theater in America can be traced back to the slave trade and the continuation of African performance traditions. Some of the traditions included oral telling of folk tales, improvisation, song, and dance. Other cultures, such as our indigenous population, Spanish, Eastern Indian, Asian people, and their contributions in the form of, again, music, dance, and storytelling contributed to the growth, tenor, and creativity and success of theater. So, how did I get involved in this? Well, at the age of 5 years old, I decided I wanted to be an actress. Now, I can't tell you why. It wasn't like I had parents that were those typical stage parents that said, we want you to do this and we're going to put you in all these things. It was just at the age of 5, I decided I wanted to be an actress. And every night when I said my prayers, I ended my prayers by saying, please God, let me become an actress, a famous actress. Now, I have to admit that my parents were extremely supportive of that. And so they allowed me to take dance classes and participate in a lot of creative activities. Now, one of the things my mother used to always say to me when I would start arguing about something, she said, oh, Lynn, stop being dramatic. And so right now, that really upsets me. When my husband and I first met, we had an argument, and he said, stop being dramatic. And I looked at him, I said, don't you ever tell me that again. But as you see, I loved performing, and I was fortunate enough to have parents that allowed me to take dance lessons and acting lessons and to be in performances. However, education was more important, and they would always hold over my head, you've got to make good grades if you want to participate in these things. So again, some other pictures. My mother loved to dress me up. And I like dressing up as well. It's not moving anymore, so. Did it move? Okay. So, when I was in church, I had the opportunity to perform in church plays for Easter and Christmas and things of that nature. Also, in elementary school, I was in plays. When I went to, and I'm telling my age, it was called junior high school back then. Okay, now it's called middle school. But in middle school, I continued to do that, to perform in plays. And I also got involved in speech and debate competition, where we would compete all over the state of Florida, which is where I'm from, West Palm Beach, Florida, in extemporaneous speaking, impromptu speaking, and also in acting. Performing in play, and I also played in the band. So a continuation of these things where I got to be involved in the arts. And what is interesting to me is that also spiked my competitiveness, because when you're in band, you're competing for first chair. I played flute and piccolo. When you're auditioning for a play, you're trying to get selected for a play over everybody else. So what it was very important to me was to be successful in that. Now, and I'll talk a little bit about my transition into the practice of law, I look back at those opportunities that I had, and I realized that they were preparing me to be a criminal defense lawyer, because it's competitive. You get to talk, you do extemporaneous and impromptu speaking, and you compete with others. So I was fortunate enough to do that. Now, doing that, I can remember certain instances. For example, I don't know who remembers this show that Diane Carroll was in, where she played a nurse. Well, I remember that she had a son. She was a single parent. And this little boy, yes, Corey, but I thought he was a horrible actor. And I said, I could do better than that. But I remember that. Also, I was impressed with other performers, especially people of color, because we're in an episode and in a part of life where it was hard, even if you were talented, to get jobs. Some of these people that I'm going to call out were people who were awesome performers and won all kinds of awards. But in many instances, if they went to perform someplace, they couldn't stay in the hotel or in the theater where they were performing because they were people of color. People like Lena Horne, and I have some pictures in the back and up here. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was the first African-American film star to be nominated for the Academy Awards in the Best Actress category in the movie Carmen Jones, which also starred handsome Harry Belafonte. Hattie McDaniel, Gone with the Wind. Hattie McDaniel was an actress, songwriter, and comedian who won the Academy Award. She actually won for Best Supporting Actress for her role in Gone with the Wind. She played the help. She was, of course, a slave. But she won that award. And I have to say that when I watched Gone with the Wind, I really wanted to be Scarlett O'Hara. But I admire the fact that this woman won an Academy Award, and she was multi-talented. But again, when you read her history, you see how she was discriminated against and limited in the things that she did. Paul Robeson, anybody familiar with Paul Robeson? He was an incredible actor, had this beautiful bass baritone voice. He was actually a professional football player, artist, lawyer who had this incredible voice and acting ability. In 1915, he won an Academy Award. He continued. While he was in school, he won an academic scholarship to Rutgers College. Now, think about that. Back in that period of time, 1915, he won a scholarship to Rutgers in Brunswick, New Jersey, where he was the only African-American student in the whole school. While at Rutgers, he was twice named a consensus All-American in football and was elected class valedictorian. He earned his LLB from Columbia Law School while playing in the National Football League. After graduation, he became a figure in the Harlem Renaissance and in Eugene O'Neill's plays, The Emperor Jones and All God's Children Got Wings. He was very political, and during the latter stages of his life, he moved out of America. He moved abroad because he couldn't deal with the racism. He was also popular for his role in the movie Showboat, and was established as a concert artist and starred in the London production of Othello. Now, a little bit more about my background. In West Palm Beach, I had the opportunity to do all of these things. But what's most profound was I got a chance in high school to compete in competition all across the country in both speech and debate. My teacher, Dale McCall, encouraged me. When it was time for me to go to college, she wanted me to go to Boston University or Boston Conservatory of Music. I had to audition, which I did, and I was accepted. However, my mother, who wanted me to go to Spelman College, which is an HBCU, all-girls school in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where my grandmother and my aunt went to school and graduated. She insisted that I go to Spelman. Now, this was on my dad's side of the family. And she did say, she tried to bargain with me, if you go for 1 year and you don't like it, you can transfer. Well, I went to Spelman, and I was in the heart of Atlanta, next to Morehouse College, and I loved it. So I stayed there. But I majored in theater. And again, telling my age, when I was a freshman performing with the Morehouse Spelman Players, Samuel Jackson was a senior there, and his wife was also. In the very first play I was ever in, The Sistrata, she was in that play as well. Also, my brother, who went to Morehouse College, which is right next door to Spelman and part of the Atlanta University Center, he shared a room with Spike Lee. So there were a lot of very creative, smart people that came out of that environment. After graduating, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in theater, but I have to say that my parents tried to convince me to do something else. My mother said, you need to get a job that you can depend on, like teaching. And I said, nope, I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to be a star. And so I ended up majoring in theater. Well, the reality of the situation is that when you're a starving actress, you've got to do jobs that you may not want to do, like be a waitress and things like that. And that was kind of short-lived with me. I did have the opportunity to do plays in some of the professional theater companies in the Atlanta area, the Alliance Theater and the Academy Theater. I did that for a while. I also, as part of a program, it was a federal program called the CETA program, I got a job and teaching young girls in an area, a very impoverished area of town, teaching them theater. So I did that for a while. And again, I was struggling and I said, I don't know if I can do this. And I remember going to New York City for my classmate's wedding and running into Sam Jackson. And at that time, he and his wife were struggling in New York City to make it. And I said to myself, as talented as they are, they're struggling. I don't know that I want to continue to do this. So at the time, I was dating a guy that was getting ready to go to law school, and he said, why not apply to law school? Which is exactly what I did. I applied and I attended the University of Florida, and I have to say it was a good decision. Now, the other piece of that is I've never abandoned my involvement in theater. And I will say this, a lot of times, and trying to help young people to understand this, that sometimes you have to take a detour for things, in order to get where you want to go. And it may be that the detour is the better plan for you. So I always made the decision that when I was in law school, I was going to be a criminal defense lawyer. And again, taking from my experience in speech and debate, that's exactly what I did. However, I was able to perform in Gainesville, Florida. They had a regional theater called the Hippodrome Theater. So I was able to perform in that theater as well. Interestingly enough, one of the things that I used to do at the University of Florida was to do that part-time, and then I started my own theater company, and we started performing throughout the state. So I think I'm ahead of this, but that's my picture with Ossie Davis, by the way. So when I was at the University of Florida, I performed at the Hippodrome Theater, and we did several plays. One of the plays that we did was called For Colored Girls Who Has Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. It was a play written by a woman, Nzataki Shange, and it was about the experiences of women of color. We actually did that play, and we went into prisons, and we went into little bars, little small bars in Gainesville, Florida, perform for people. One of the things that I will say that I learned when I was in college, and I remember having a conversation with my dad, that you want to expose people to theater. And a lot of times it's difficult. We would actually do plays at Spelman where it was open to the public. The public lived nearby. They didn't have to pay. And sometimes it was difficult to get them to come to those shows. So I remember having a conversation with my dad and explaining, I don't understand this. It's free. They can walk here to the theater. He said, maybe you need to go pick them up. And he was right about that. That's something in dealing with our clients in the criminal justice system and recognizing there are a lot of people that just haven't been exposed to certain things. And you may have to take the step forward to do that. So we decided when we were in Gainesville that we were going to perform in some places that normally don't have performances. And like I said, one of them was to go into the penal system and do performances with the men that were in prison, and they loved it. So I continued, and then I moved back home to Florida. I eventually got married, but before leaving West Palm Beach, again started another company called Off the Wall Players. And we did a number of performances, different shows. And this was one. I've actually done that in West Beach, in Gainesville, and actually here in Dallas, Texas as well. Again, reaching out to audiences that normally don't go to theater. We recognize, and I'll be honest with you, I used to be very critical of some of the shows that Tyler Perry would put on. It's like they're like minstrel shows, they've got the same concepts and everything. But you know what? It's important to do shows that people can relate to. To be honest with you, if I were to say to somebody who'd never been to a play before, let's go see Othello. Okay, honestly, I'm even bored by Shakespeare. Okay, but if you get them going to a play and you get them interested, then it encourages them to branch out. So that has always been one of the things that I felt very strongly about, that in order to include people, to let them know the beauty and the wonder of being in a theatrical environment and seeing plays and seeing shows, that it gets them educated. So this was the one we did in Plano, Texas, and literally just opened it up. I was working at a community center part-time and also with Plano Children's Theater. Plano Children's Theater that was a theater company where parents in Plano could pay for their kids to come to take classes in the Plano Theater and to do performances. So I taught there and I also directed performances there. And so Sarah Akers, who was the director there, she agreed to co-produce and sponsor For Colored Girls Again. So we did that show here with these ladies. While I was in Plano, again, I did another show for Plano Repertory Company. A little story that I have, when I was in middle school, I was determined that I was never going to play a role as a maid. I said, I'm not. That's how they cast people of color. And I stuck with that until this show, Proposals. The main character in this show was a maid, and I actually did the show and actually got some write-ups in the Plano Star-Courier about it, and they commented on the fact that, you know, I was doing the show and I was also a criminal defense attorney. Now, here's another interesting thing, how fate takes over things. I was doing a play at UNT called The Fall of the Amazons. At that time, I had not been in the Plano area for very long. And I decided, since I had been a prosecutor starting out in my career, then I went to work for a firm, then I was in private practice. I decided that I wanted to focus on criminal defense and for people who are indigent. But Plano did not have a public defender's office. So I ended up getting some court appointments in Collin County and also doing some side gigs with theater on the side. And I was in this play, The Fall of the Amazons, and I was talking to a woman whose daughter was in the play. And she was talking to me, finding out, we were talking about each other, trying to find out our histories and everything. And I told her that, you know, I wanted to be a public defender, but there was not a public defender's office in Collin County. She said, my husband is a public defender in Dallas. And that happened to be who is now Rick Magnus, who is a retired court judge. So she put me in touch with him. I came and I applied for the job, and I got the job. That was 30 years ago. Yeah, so, but who would have thought that I would make that kind of connection that far away? So, started working here in the public defender's office, and about maybe 10 years ago, I was given an opportunity to go into our Dallas County Jail and to work with women in the Resolana Pod. The Resolana Pod are women that are in the Dallas County Jail who have agreed to participate in the program, and they do everything from giving them classes on parenting, dealing with them if they have substance abuse issues, in the whole 9 yards. So I was able to go into our jail and to work with these women, and we actually put on a performance that was identified by Dallas newspaper. It's called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Is anybody familiar with that play? It's a delightful little play. It's about a family, they're called the Herdmans, and they were the worst kids in the neighborhood. And they decide, once they hear that they can go to the local church and get food for free, they start going there, and they decide to be in one of the plays. So we did this performance, and I will tell you that these women were incredible. And I have to say this, and I hope I don't get emotional by this. Most of the women that are in there have kids. Most of them have substance abuse issues and some mental health issues. Most of them that have the substance abuse and mental health issues are because of the men in their lives that have mistreated them. But extremely talented and gifted women. And they were amazing. Now, the funny thing about this, you're going to do a production, and there's a date that you do the show, and you invite people to it. Because it's in the Dallas County Jail, sometimes the women would come to me and say, Miss Lynn, I'm supposed to get out of jail tomorrow. And I'd say, no, you can't go. So I was just kidding. You can't go. What was fascinating, on their own, they started memorizing each other's parts. And so there were others who had smaller parts that agreed to fill in as understudies. Nobody asked them to do it, but they did it. So we continued to do that. And a couple of years ago, I had a young woman who was our social media expert, who also went into Dallas County Jail with me, and she worked with them on spoken word and in writing things. And a lot of them wrote this beautiful poetry. A lot of it's painful to read because it's about the things they had gone through in their lives. When I talked to the people there, they were always encouraging me and wished there's a way that we could capture them, because once they leave the jail and they go out and they don't have a job and they don't really have stable housing, they end up coming back over and over again. And I'm committed to one day finding a way that we can do that kind of transition. But it was very educational for me, because working in the criminal justice system for as long as I have, I will tell you, most people in the system, over the sheriff's office, places like that, will tell me, I don't like working with the women. The women are messy. The women are always arguing. And that disturbs me that you would say that. I will tell you also that when I'm representing people in the system, when men get in trouble, everybody calls. Mother calls, sister calls, girlfriend 1, 2, and 3 call, girlfriend wives call, wanting to know, how can I get my baby out? One lady said, I need to get my baby out. Ma'am, your baby is 63, okay? But women seldom get those calls unless it's a grandmother who's saying, you got to get her out because I'm keeping her 5 kids. And it's just so incredibly sad. And when you look at the statistics, you look at the women that are in our Dallas County Jail, most of them are there for substance abuse issues, and they become addicted to drugs. So I think we have to do a better job about reaching out. But I think what is more profound than anything else, the assumption is because they come from certain neighborhoods, because many of them end up in prostitution, because they are victims, they are still extremely talented and knowledgeable. So it's one of the highlights of my career here, which people would say, why wouldn't it be represented? I do. I loved what I was doing. But at the end of the day, it's all about helping other people and keeping people from cycling in and out of the system. So I'm going to how much time do I have? How much?
30 minutes.
30 whole minutes? Okay, well, we can do. I told you I have a little skit at the end that I need to engage some of you guys with. So that brings me to what I am doing today. I sit on the board of directors of the Dallas Theater Center, which is a regional theater company, and it's actually won a Tony Award. They do a number of plays. I started going to see the plays, and I agreed to serve on the board, but I've actually had the pleasure of performing in some of their plays. Now, Jason mentioned one that he saw. I've been in 3 productions, and it's part of the Public Works program. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Public Works. It originated in New York City, where professional performers and actors work with people who have never been in a show before, never even been to see a play before, and they put on these huge productions. And so now there are several other public works groups across the country with different theaters. Well, Dallas Theater Center has one, and they started doing it maybe about 8 years ago. That was before I became affiliated with them. And usually they did Shakespeare, and it's the same concept. What Dallas Theater Company and Dallas Theater Center will do is, first of all, they have training. So they go to a number of the community centers in the Dallas County area, and they work with them. They have professional actors that go and conduct classes. They have classes for kids. They have classes for adults. They have classes where there are only Spanish speakers there, and they even have classes for those who are chronologically challenged, the older group, okay? And so they teach those classes for a while, and then they have auditions for the huge production that they're going to do. So what happens is that people go to the various centers and they audition, and then they're selected to perform. What happens is that you have professional actors who are part of the union. Actually, Dallas Theater Center has their own professional company that are performing, along with people as young as 6 and 7 and as old as 90. I have been some of the shows where some of the people have been walking on walkers. All of them have been musicals. And so for the time that we're rehearsing, each night, Dallas Theater Center also feeds everybody. They rehearse, they do the shows, and you have as many as 200 people on stage. And when I tell you that it is challenging, especially when you get a little bit older, because you're expected to dance and to perform like everybody else. And it is really amazing to see because relationships are developed there. And at the end of the production, you have people that are literally in tears. Now, this is some of the, we've got some productions coming up. Let's see. That was one that I think I was in. Is that, there it is. The Little Mermaid. Our treasurer had a chance to come see the show. This is some of my fellow thespians, and we were performing. It's absolutely magical to see the talent, again, from people who've never been on stage before, and the people that come back over and over again. There was one woman who is in her late 80s. She has been in the last 3 productions, okay? But it's so enlightening, and a lot of money is spent on it. To put on the production, I think, with The Little Mermaid, they spent over $1 million to do so. Part of Dallas Theater Center is about educating students. So they have classes during the summer for kids that are interested in the performing arts. And so I am scheduled to be the chair of the board when I retire next year. And it's a full-time job. Kind of, you don't get paid for it. But what's magical about it is you get to touch people from all different backgrounds. The other thing too, when we talk about theater, we talk about covering issues and areas of concern for all of us. You can see a play and you could look at, the topic of the play is how we treat one another. The other thing that I found, especially that sometimes you learn a lot from the plays, and you may see yourself or you may see issues that are of importance to you. You also, when you look at theater, it's an opportunity for people to get together, sometimes people that don't even know each other. You go to a play and you sit next to somebody and then you have a conversation with them. And then the subject matter kind of helps you to understand how other people think and what they do. So not only is theater there for entertainment, it helps to teach us and it helps for us to grow. Now, one of the things that I do when I go into the Dallas County Jail is we have what's called, and I think one person raised their hand, and they knew what an improvisation was. And essentially, improvisations are this. You're given a storyline or a factual scenario, and you are responsible for creating the characters in that. So I'd like to see volunteers for people who want to be in the improvisations. I'd like to do too. Come on, guys. Okay, I got one back there. Somebody else? We got to have at least 3 or 4 people, okay, next to you. Come on. Yeah, but I'm going to talk to you, and then we're going to talk some more in the back, okay? Okay, yay! Okay. So let's go to the back, and I'll be right back. Continue eating your food, and then I'll go over what they're going to do, and we're going to bring it back later.
Ma'am, you getting on? Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry. The elevator stopped.
I'm
It
sorry.
stopped.
What?
It stopped. It stopped. It's okay. It's okay. Don't touch me.
It's okay. It happens all the time. This old building, we'll just call the fire department and they'll get us out.
I got a cell phone.
Okay, you gonna call me? Oh, I think she's in labor.
No network over here. Breathe.
This is gonna hold me up. I'm supposed to go meet my man for lunch. This is gonna be too much for me. I can't do this. It has to happen today. Hey,
It's okay.
I'm
It's
supposed to go
okay.
meet my man for lunch.
No, she's okay. It's okay.
Mommy,
Okay, no.
Mommy and my uncle on
Look, why don't you just go ahead and call and
Trash. There is no network in downtown.
Light skin says
If I let, ladies, if we have to, we can deliver this baby out of ourselves. We can handle this. We can do this. We got this.
Excuse me.
We're in
I got connection.
No, baby. We got this.
Clever, just keep
We
breathing.
got
I don't hear
this.
you
We are women, and we can handle this.
Hey,
I said Byron in high school. Me and Byron said way back.
And he got a little This is not the time to have that discussion.
No, she needs a push.
I know. Okay, here, have a seat, go sit down, sit down. Sit down. Sit down on the floor. Sit down on the floor. She's sitting on the floor. Okay.
Somebody on the line.
Okay. 30 seconds. Okay, let's count the seconds.
Hurry up.
Come on. Okay, in a minute, tell me what they're saying. Tell me what they're saying.
Okay.
Tell me what they're saying.
Hey,
Did we press the elevator call button?
Sixth floor.
Tell me what they're saying.
Please.
Okay, are they telling me I need to go ahead and tell her to
Okay,
go
first of
ahead?
all, I don't need nobody touching me right now.
We're not gonna touch you. We're touching her. We're touching her. We're touching her. Okay.
They said that they will be 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Can you hold it?
They got the ambulance upstairs.
Okay, this is not gonna be 30 seconds. This is not 30 seconds. Ladies, we'll get back to business here.
Bean! Go back!
That's it, no more.
What was the situation that was on
That's the point they gave me. That's the point they gave me.
How are you? I'm gonna have a seat right here if you don't mind and rest my feet.
Oh, Ruby.
Oh,
so good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I just stepped up on knee replacement, so it's gonna take me a while.
Oh, I was just saying, whoo, I thought I had it bad and you're moving a little bit slower than me. Before I say, I'll wait till you make it to me and then maybe I can give you a hug. How about that?
Good.
That's good, okay. How are the grandbabies?
They're so good. I want to see them tomorrow.
When are you gonna see them?
Tomorrow.
When are you gonna see them?
Tomorrow.
Oh, well, look at you! Hi there! I didn't know you were here too. I didn't. It's You're fine.
Is that my seat?
Sit. Sit.
Oh,
Sit. Sit. Oh, there you go.
So,
The grandbaby.
You're who?
The Ruby. Ruby.
Ruby,
I'm grandbaby.
Look, I have pictures from our trip.
You have
I
what?
have pictures from our trip with
What?
the grandbaby.
Oh,
Wait, you're
Oh.
Mona?
Ruby.
Ruby?
Ruby.
I'm Mona.
Mona.
What's my name?
I don't know.
Wait, let me see
Tell me again.
You're Jan.
Jan.
I was saying Shan. You gotta talk up. Shan. Jan.
Jan.
Jan. Oh.
Ruby and Mona.
That's
Mona.
right.
Mona.
Oh, you look so good. Sorry. You look so good, Ruby.
Okay.
Do you remember we went on that cruise? We had so much
Oh,
fun.
yes.
I enjoyed
Doing
that.
all the puzzles and the crossword puzzles too.
That's
And the
right.
grandbaby.
The grandbaby.
The
How many do you think I have now?
How?
How many do you think I have now?
2?
No, 4.
4?
4.
Oh,
How many?
4.
I saw a hand go up.
4.
Can I show you the pictures of the grandbabies?
Oh my goodness. They are adorable.
What did you say?
They are adorable.
Yeah.
Mona and Ruby
Mona.
Ruby.
and Jan.
Jan.
So what else have y'all been doing?
Read.
Read, okay.
She asked, what have we been doing?
Walking in the park. In the park walking.
And knitting? What about knitting? I know you love knitting.
Knitting, yes, knitting. I made some booties. Booties.
Good for the
For the
grandbabies.
grandbabies. Shit.
Mona.
Mona, Ruby,
Ruby.
Jan.
You're Jan.
With the grandbabies.
2 grandbabies.
4
4 grandbabies.
4 grandbabies.
4 grandbabies.
Yeah.
Y'all can figure that one out.
I don't know why you think it's funny.
When I say Good job.
I told them that they could just get somebody else to do it, because I'm not gonna do it. But you can't call me and have me do everything all the time. And that's what I told them, don't say anything else to me about it. Call the person who's supposed to do it, because I do their job all the time. You know, that's what I said. That's what I said. And I said, calling me for what? Calling me for what? No, don't call me, call her. She's the one that's supposed to do it.
Sit on this bench right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, this is
Let me put my purse down. What is it? Stacks on stacks on stacks.
You like it?
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
I can tell it's about 10,000.
Oh.
You want it, what, wait. Take it?
No,
What?
We have bills.
we gotta turn it in. We're government employees. We
Oh.
got-
I need to go get my hair done.
You were saying you want to pay off your truck? Goodness.
I can't use stolen money to pay the truck or tithes.
You
Can I
got a
pay
job.
tithes?
You got a job. I'm pleased to give a little bit to to the church, just give a little to church and everything be all right. What? Girl,
Got the Lord
listen.
bless it, and then we'll take it home. Fine.
What about our
Wait,
taxes?
Wait,
We got bills.
you got bills, I got bills, we got bills, we all got bills. We got bills, we got a bag of money.
Yeah.
We got a bag of money, but you know what? You know, I think we should go back in the office. I think we should go back in the office and report this to the marshal's office.
Let's go ahead and take some.
Oh no, I watch true crime for lunch. I watch true crime all the time. Don't, not, let's act normal, keep it in bag, zip up the bag, don't put the bag back. Let's leave with the bag. What's this camera?
Oh, yeah, I do.
So let me stop pointing at the cameras. Let's go. We're gonna report it to the marshal's station. Oh, act surprised. Come on, y'all. Okay, now let's get back.
But I'm still taking some. I think they were all
We're
So that's the beauty of
2
theater.
minutes.
You know, you get to come
2
up
minutes.
with, you get to laugh, sometimes you get to cry, you get to relate to what's going on. But what is different about live theater is that the interaction and again, the energy between the performers and the others. And it's just a wonderful thing. Again, thank you for listening to me, listening to my sad stories and my stories about my background. But this was delightful. You see how talented people are? They only had a couple of minutes to plan this, okay? So we thank you for coming, and there's some pictures in the back if you want to look at them. And also a shameless plug for Dallas Theater Center. If you go online, they have productions coming up and they do a wonderful job. So thank you all.